Welcome to Mental Health Momentum, a Silicon Slopes podcast. I'm Dr. David Morgan. I'm a licensed psychologist and the Director of Mental Health Awareness here at Silicon Slopes. On this podcast, we talk about mental health issues in business and beyond, and we look for solutions as well. And I'd like to introduce my guest to you today, Nicea DeGering. Hello, Nicea.
Hi.
Let me tell you about Nicea. Nicia's been a television news reporter, anchor on ABC4, and now co-host of Emmy award-winning morning show, Good Things Utah, for 30 years in Salt Lake City, Utah. She has interviewed everyone from TV personalities to presidential candidates to country music superstars. In her spare time, Nicea can be seen and heard on local and national television and radio commercials, emceeing events, traveling with her two daughters, navigating a new recipe, and I loved this part, or jogging with her favorite child, a golden doodle named Miles.
He never talks back.
So if your daughters listen to this, your daughters know that, Miles is the favorite.
They know that that's my only son, and he's my favorite child. I'm an empty nester. They're gone. They have to know that he's the only one that hasn't moved out. I keep hoping he doesn't. I hid his suitcase. He can't go anywhere.
And easier to parent.
Yes. Much easier.
Well, and thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast. And you knew it was a mental health podcast when you agreed. So tell me about just like your interest in mental health. What drove your desire to be here?
I think it started when I was very young, and you and I were talking about when we grew up in the 80s and 90s and how mental health was not something talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, I think my parents maybe said the word therapy one time, and it was because it was on a television show, and they wanted to ask me if I knew what it meant. And people go to that, but we don't need it. We, in the family talk about things, or we go to church and we talk to people at church, and we don't need therapy. That was the feeling growing up in the 80s in Orem, Utah with my family. Well, my sister struggled with mental health, my older sister, from the time I can remember. And we were always trying to, I remember, discuss it as a family, but it was also very hush-hush because what might people think of us? It started with her divorce. And when she got divorced, got married when I was 5. I was 10 when she got divorced, and she moved in with us. I remember my mother leaving to go out for dinner and asking if I would watch my sister so she wouldn't hurt herself. And I was 12. And I didn't understand at that age why my sister would want to hurt herself, or why she was in a place that made sense to her, when I thought she had a wonderful life and a great little sister, and I couldn't fathom it. That was my first moment of thinking about mental health. And the reaction of my brothers and the reaction of people around my sister as she struggled for the next several decades. And as much as was at the state mental hospital there for several months, and in uni, and in and out of Huntsman. And I became the big sister, and I became her advocate, because it felt like during those first several years, I love that we talk about it now more than ever. And I love that we're doing this podcast, because I think talking about it is the answer to the stigma. But my sister didn't have that all those years ago. And unlike someone with a broken leg or with cancer or whatever awful physical malady they might have, my sister was, quote, just not fine and maybe crazy, and I don't know, she just needs to get over it. And I didn't see her that way. I saw her as someone who wished this wasn't the case, and wished it could be different, and was struggling to find answers. So I have been her advocate, and I have been someone thrust into that world as a little girl. And here we are decades later, and she's doing great. She's doing really well. But I've watched her journey.
Yeah.
And it's been heartbreaking and hopeful and a little bit of everything. So that has given me my perspective on mental health. People
their lives have been touched by it, there's so much more compassion, there's so much more understanding. And I'm guessing this expands it expands beyond your sister as well, right? Because then there's, when you find other people that are struggling with mental health, even sometimes when it's difficult to manage, there's a part of you that thinks, well, wait a minute, maybe it's like this or like that, right? I mean,
it's so true.
Increase your compassion.
Well, and you want to give people, I always say, experience and perspective, and you have to earn it sometimes.
Yeah.
So we're here to help you earn it. That's why we're doing the podcast, is we've been there. And I've been in places with my sister that I wish she never would have gone, and perspective I wish I never had to learn. But this is a real issue. This is not something that she made up or wanted or any of those things. And so when I sit now with people on a morning show and I hear about their stories and how they're trying to bring more attention to mental health, yes, because of that perspective, I'm all ears. I want to talk about it as much as we can. I spoke at the Capitol. There was a rally about suicide prevention. And I asked my sister if I could tell her story. And she said yes. And I spoke about it. And a lot of people come up after and say, I didn't know that you would deal with something like this. Everyone is dealing with something like this.
Yeah.
Everyone has. I've had moments where, not like my sister, but that I thought, I'm not fine.
Right.
And I think saying it out loud is how we say to people, how my kids now say, I want to go to therapy and I want to talk about it. I wouldn't have said that to my parents. There's no way. They would have said, what's wrong with you? Well, let's sit down and you tell us what's wrong. I love that that's different. And if we move the needle a little bit, and if I try to move it on Good Things Utah, and I try to move it here with you, I think every movement is important.
I love that. I want to talk about something that is dear to my heart, and I think it's dear to yours too, is just the underprivileged and neglected. It seems like, just as I was looking over your bio and some of the things you do, you're at events for this. Tell me about that. Like, is it that same thing, just like the experience growing up with your sister and thinking, are there more people out there to help?
I also, I've had this unique view of Utah. I've been privileged, I feel like, to have this view for 30 years next month of our state. And when you have a view like that, you see the good and you see the bad and you see all of it. I interviewed someone one day about how we're the best when it comes to the safest communities in the country. And then I interviewed someone the next day that talks about our opioid addiction, our porn addiction, our
depression rates, our mental health rates,
our mental health, our suicide rates.
Exactly.
And there's so many good things in Utah. That's the show that I'm on. But I also see the contrast. And I think even growing up, so often we wanted to look the other way, that must not be someone I know. That must not be something happening in our state. That must be somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I just spoke at I'm on the board of Fight Against Domestic Violence. And I remember someone getting up and saying, we need to help these people. We need to be there and donate. Had his heart in the right place. But these people are us.
Yeah.
These people are our sister. These people are our neighbors. This might be my next door neighbor in Sandy. This is not a problem that is somewhere away from us. This is close by. So for me to speak up for them, and there's so many causes, and I try to attach myself to as many as possible. But I just think to whom much is given to, much is expected.
Right.
And if I can be a voice for that, I try to be.
Well, and especially those, like you said, these people that they need voices because they're afraid to use their own half the time, right? Because of their circumstances. And so they need someone who can come along and say, it's okay for you to speak up. And if you can't speak right now, I'll speak for you, but we're going to get you to the point where you can speak for yourself.
I did a story back when I was still reporting and doing Good Things Utah called The Perfectly Perfect Problem in this state. How there is this illusion of, and I grew up in it, so I can speak to it, and I fell into it. I looked perfect at BYU.
Yeah.
I never went to school in sweats. Even on a bad day, and now I do a television show where I have bad days, I have rough shows, but I look like I've got it all together.
Right.
I think it's the most authentic thing we can do and say is, no, I don't have it all together all the time. I remember interviewing Brooke Burke. She was then the host of Dancing with the Stars. And asking her, how do you balance motherhood and the show and everything you do? And the first thing she said to me is, I hope you ask men the same question. And I thought, well played. I should.
Right.
You're absolutely right. Why is that only asked of women?
Because, exactly. Who's asking that of a male CEO? Right?
No, you don't ask. How do you balance it all?
Right.
We don't.
Right.
We ask the women, which we should ask both. Then she said, in the simplest way, I don't have it all together.
Right.
There's moments I do amazing at motherhood, and there's moments I do amazing on Dancing with the Stars, and it's usually not the same day.
Right.
I loved that authenticity. And that's what I think people are still, you and I talked about this earlier, yearning for. In a place where we're just trying to find who has the voice that we connect with and we listen to, I still think being the real you is so priceless in 2025.
So why this divide then, right? Because Brooke's absolutely right. You would have never asked that question, and you're a woman, right? And even then, you think, well, a man, of course, would never ask that question because we're not even thinking about it. But you're conditioned not to ask that question. So, and we talked earlier before the podcast just about the unique contributions of men and women to different organizations, and how women approach things differently. But there's this bias, there's this stigma that just, it hasn't gone away. It's better, I think, than it has been in generations, but it hasn't gone away. What do we do? Give
You
me your...
mentioned Susan Madsen.
Yes.
She's
yes.
my hero. I love her. I've interviewed her several times, and whenever I feel like I'm going to speak on something like this, I call her to get statistics because she has
Absolutely.
them. Right?
Yes.
She has
It's like
them.
a walking statistical machine.
And the last time I talked to her, literally 3 weeks ago, because I emceed Women in Tech, and she said, "Here's this," and we pushed the needle, but the needle still needs to go a really long way, and that's Utah. And I've seen the change in Utah. I've seen us have women in places that women were not when the show started 23 years ago and when I started reporting. But it's interesting. If you could have been at the Silicon Slopes last January when we had panels, and I moderated the very last panel, and the very last one they had all women on. And I thought it went so well. I thought what was said was so great. The one thing, if I can share it with all of you, if you weren't in that room at Edison House, that stood out to me is men make room for men at the table. Men bring their buddies up with them. Men don't have any problem making a team. Women scoot in and hope that no other women is joining. That's a problem. Women, there's room for every voice at the table, no matter whose voice it is. And there's a competitive nature to us, I think, because, gosh, I'm in television. I mean, it can't get more competitive than television. But there's a thing where I got here, and I don't want anyone else to follow. I've got it. Whereas every voice makes a difference, and women slide over and make room for more. That was one of the points of that panel. But it ended, and I go to questions. I'm the moderator. The very first question was, why is this the only panel of all women? Why is this at the end of the day? Why was this not interspersed throughout all of the Silicon Slopes event? And it was a valid question.
Sure.
It was a valid question. And Tiffany, who was on the panel, said, I think a lot of women just feel like we're not good enough to be up here, or we're busy, or we don't have time, but you have to see it to be it. So more women stepping into those roles and more women speaking out lets women like my daughters see that they can do it too.
Yeah.
So I think we're doing it. I think we're stepping up. I think we're seeing that motherhood is one role, but there can be so many others that you can also be part of.
Right.
I remember working in the 90s and having someone say to me, I'm so sorry you have to work. Well-meaning.
Sure.
Well-meaning.
Of course. Yeah. They didn't mean anything bad by it.
And by the time I was told that half a dozen times and a dozen times, I thought, I need to have a response rather than, oh, thank you.
Right.
And I finally said back, I understand there are some women that have to work. I choose to. I've been passionate about journalism since I can remember. And I'm going to show my girls that it's important for me to do what I love, but also be a mom.
Yeah.
And that's my choice, and that's an okay choice. And again, I'm not perfect and I don't have it all, but I don't know of anyone who has it all at all times. But I've chosen to give my girls that mom did something that made her happy and also came home and was with us.
Yeah.
And balance both. I think if you can see it, you can do it. And Utah's getting better and better at it.
I think we need to be more intentional about kind of our thinking about this. Like even that panel at the Silicon Slopes Summit, if you'd have taken a closer look at that, if someone had taken a closer look at that from the beginning and thought, what are the optics going to be on this, right? You know, that this is the only one and it's the last day in the last place. People maybe would have stopped and said, maybe we need to adjust this.
Interspersed, because there's some incredible women CEOs.
Absolutely.
And like we said out there's some reason that men go, I can be on a panel and I didn't even think about it and I'll sit in. And women go, well, I don't know. Do I need to prepare? And what are the questions? Ladies, just do it.
Yes.
Just do it. The guys don't know what they're doing and they do it. Why don't we do the same? It's so funny. I had a guy on the show earlier last week that said, right before we went on, he was a chef in the kitchen. He said, it's my birthday today. And I said, it's your birthday. How old are you? And he goes, 50. And I said, oh, do you not want me to say that on the air? And he goes, I'm a dude. I don't care. Say it.
Right.
And then I thought, why don't we do that, ladies? Like, I'm 52 and I'm proud of that. But why are we like, don't say it's my birthday. And here I go to aging when men are proud of it. Men will do things without any preparation that women want to take weeks to put together. And ladies, like, let's not wait. If there's a seat, if there's a voice that you can give, just do it.
Yeah.
Do it now.
Let go of the fear, right?
Yes.
And and it's interesting because on the one hand, you have kind of this toxic masculinity or whatever you want to call it, in society that has been kind of a scourge on our society for generations. And you can say, well, that's part of the problem and is part of the problem. But I think there is this other side as well. You and I were talking earlier about people taking accountability for their own stuff. Yeah. And just like you said, if there's a woman out there who says, I want a seat at the table, but quit with the buts,
Quit
right?
with it.
And just say, take accountability and say, I want to do this. And notwithstanding how you think this might go or what generations have done before you, don't let that affect you. Take your own accountability and say, I'm going to do this and see what happens, right? Maybe you crash and fall.
What's the worst that can happen? And you and I talked about too,
Exactly.
that falling and failing is when you see true character.
Oh, it's the most miserable experience you ever have, but it's the greatest learning experiences when we just go through these terrible, terrible things. And then we look back on it 10 years later and we go, oh my heavens, I learned so much from that.
I would tell you too that falling and failing is what makes us who we are. I mean,
Yes.
that's what builds you up, and
Of
that's
course.
what I mean. And I love that you and I talked about. I told you I didn't have an easy 40s. That decade was hard, but that decade made me who I am.
Yeah.
That decade I stepped into my own more than I ever have, and without it, I wouldn't be here at 52, feeling more confident in myself than I think I've ever been.
Well, and I think it's so funny how, for whatever reason, we can't seem to understand how emotional development requires struggle, but every other sort of development requires struggle. And we get that in a second. Any person who does sports, you would talk to them, what's the BYU football team doing this week? This is going to air much later, but they just
Right.
beat Utah,
What are the
a
Utes
couple
doing?
of days ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they're in the gym, right? They're hitting the gym.
Yeah.
They're practicing those sorts of things. They're working hard. They're pushing themselves beyond their limits because they want to get better. And we know that's the only way. They can't take this week off and then play the next team and see how it goes. Yet in our emotional lives, we think, well, I just want everything to be fine. I don't want any difficulties. I don't want any challenges. I don't want anyone to tell me I'm bad. I don't want anyone to divorce me. I don't want any of these things, right? And then we expect somehow to be qualitatively different 40 years later. It doesn't work that way. It's the exact same thing. We have to go through that struggle to get to improve.
You can't be complacent. You
No,
can't.
no.
You have to have movement. I have a vision board in my closet, and I put it there, rolling my eyes and thinking, do vision boards really work? And we had so many people on the show talk about them and how helpful. And I was like, oh, are they? Like, you just see a picture and then you do it. It's helped me so much.
Wow.
And I put it right where I get ready. And on it, it says, it's fine. You're fine. I'm fine. Because that's what we want.
Yes.
But is that authentic? When you're asked how you're doing all the time, does I'm fine really resonate with you? If it does, great. But if not, let's do
Right.
something about it.
Right.
My sister and I still discuss, and I always check in with her mental health. Like, how are you doing? And she's doing really well. But I'm constantly checking in with her, and hopefully, she with me. How are you doing? And I always say, she'll say, sometimes I'm sad today. And I always say,
What a great thing to say.
tell me
Yes.
about it. Tell me about that. And same with my daughters. They used to say to me, as a parent, I want to fix everything, right? We just want to make our kids fine. I want them to go, I'm fine, you're fine, we're fine. Mom, just listen. You can't change this. Just listen to it. Hardest thing as a parent to not take away sadness or unhappiness from your kids, right?
Yes.
You're only as happy as your saddest child. But my
Which
sister,
is not true, actually.
Not true?
Oh, you
We've
can't-
heard
yeah.
that forever.
Oh, yeah, but it's not true.
Okay,
'Cause,
good.
but, I mean, why would you tether your emotional experience to your
I
children,
know.
right?
So true.
I mean, you
That
can't-
is true.
No question that your children being sad is going to affect you. But if you're saying you can never be happier than your saddest child, man, you're setting yourself up for a lot of misery the rest of your life.
And you have 6
so-
of them. I mean,
Yeah,
that's rough. I only have 2.
No,
But no,
I can be happier than my kids are.
I tell my sister and my kids, like, let's visit. Let's visit sad, but let's not live there.
Yes.
Let's stop by. Let's go over it, and then let's get up and get going. And but visit it. Be real. Be authentic. That's part of the life experience.
One part of the problem that we have now is that we don't even want to visit. And we do a bunch of things so that we don't have to, right? We distract ourselves constantly from our emotions. I was just experiencing this the other day. I was just thinking about some things and about like my personal coping. And I thought, you know what, I need to be better at coping with some things. And so I decided to start meditating. So I got a meditation app, and I had never really done it before. And so I've been doing it only like a week now.
What do you think?
I love it. It's so good because I'm the type of person, I'm like, I got to get things done. I'm always multitasking. If I'm watching TV, I'm sending emails at the same time on my
True.
laptop, right? And it's just a 10-minute meditation. And I literally do nothing else. I just sit there, listen to this lovely person, walk me through the meditation, and I focus on my breath and all these things. And it's fascinating to me just getting in touch with that instead of just trying to push it away constantly. Because I've always been a big fan of, we have to feel our feelings. The more we try to push them away, the more they just keep coming back. You have to experience them and just kind of let them go. You know,
But
if
we
you're
didn't
sad.
need the meditation app in the 80s and 90s.
Oh, no.
Because
No.
our walk to campus
Exactly.
was we were noticing the birds
Walk
and the
home
weather.
from the bus.
And our
Exactly.
walk
All I
home
had
from the
time
bus.
to think.
And
Yeah,
our car
exactly.
ride for 8
Yes.
hours where we didn't listen. I mean, AM radio. I remember my dad turned on the AM and we couldn't get it, so we turned it off.
Yeah.
Now we do. I don't think our brain is equipped to take so much information in all the time without having a quiet space.
Oh, I know. My daughter-in-law, one of my daughters-in-law, she texted me the other day, and she said, Dad, I've been sick for the last couple of days, and she says, I've actually really enjoyed it because my brain has slowed down and I haven't been able to think about as many things. And she says, I kind of like that. She says, is there something I can do to like keep my brain slowed down like this? Because she knows I'm a psychologist. So it was, I messaged her and gave her some suggestions, but I said, you can do this. You have to slow down, but it has to be intentional because we live in such a fast-paced society. We were talking earlier about social media and how, you know, and like dating apps and stuff, and how each potential partner gets like 8 seconds of your time, if that, right? Because, you know, and if they happen to catch your eye, then you'll give them the 8 seconds, right? And then that's where you figure out, oh, but they have this quality and this quality, swiping on, you know, and moving in the other direction, which, like you said earlier, is not helpful for dating.
No,
Internet
I
kind of
hate
ruined
it for
dating,
my
didn't it?
23 and 20-year-old. I hate it. It's ruined dating. Social media. There's so many positives to social media.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But there are also so many negatives. I look at my 20-year-old and she cannot sit without her phone. And then I look at my example of picking it up while we're in the grocery store, and I'm like, okay, put that back down. What are we mirroring to our kids? But I mean, she grew up with it in her hand. We really didn't. We are more intentional when we think about getting on it and getting off it. But she knows nothing else, and she has anxiety.
Yeah.
And I see it. And I don't think any of us are equipped to handle the images and the videos that are coming at us 24 hours a day on those devices.
And I agree with you. I think there's a place for social media. I think it's done some good things, but it almost feels to me like tobacco in the 40s when doctors were like, you know, this is great, you know,
right.
Relax with a Marlboro after work, you know, and it's great for your heart and those sorts of things. And only till later did we realize just how detrimental this was. And I think we're finally seeing that with social media. We're starting to see, I don't think it's like tobacco that way, which really has no redeeming quality to smoke it. You know, it's not going to, smoking tobacco doesn't really get you anywhere. I think social media can be helpful, but man, we have to manage. You have to be super, super intentional about it.
It's those moments that the guy comes on the show that needs this life-saving heart surgery, and he's amazing and has this nonprofit, and we ask our viewers, could you please donate to his GoFundMe? And they do, and they get it, and that kind of message, and also the community that you find that maybe you can't find in your own neighborhood that you find on social media. I love all of those things. And I also think we now hide behind it.
Yeah.
That we don't have, like you said, any time. You have to intentionally meditate for 10 minutes. When we didn't have
using my phone.
Right?
But still,
using your phone and an app on your phone.
But it's over on the side.
Hold
I'm
on,
not
you're
looking at it.
You're not looking at it. I remember not taking my phone on a vacation. I remember years ago, like I forgot it in my car, and I was like, oh, well. And everyone was shocked. They're like, we'll go back. You could have it sent for. You could. It was so freeing. I mean, I was Talladega Nights. I didn't know what to do with my hands. Right? Because for a while, you're so tethered to it. You don't even know what to do. And then the freedom in it.
Yes.
I'm not good at it. I mean, that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I haven't done it since, but it was a different trip.
Yeah.
I was present. I was actually present and listening and not wondering why I just got an email.
I think we'll figure it out. I think we're finally getting to the point where we're starting to see, okay, maybe this all of it isn't as great as we thought it was going to be. And what kind of, you know, restrictions or safeguards or boundaries we need to set on it. I think we will. I think like our grandchildren's generation, I wonder if they'll even have a lot of that. I wonder if they'll even,
I think it's Minority Report. I think they'll be like moving things on a screen with glasses they're wearing.
Exactly. Yeah, we're close. There are female entrepreneurs out there who are listening to this, and the message I want to tell them is just like you said, just do it, right? Just go for it.
It's so interesting as women, and you know how intentional we are, and just we want it to be the right thing. Well, what if it's not, and what if you just tried? And I say these things to myself as much as anyone else. I mean, I also have fears. I also have imposter syndrome. When I'm standing at Women in Tech and introducing people with triple PhDs, and I'm a TV girl, and I talk for a living, and do I belong here? Do I belong at this table? I felt the same feelings that other women out there do. And the answer is yes. It was interesting. One of the women backstage, I said, I'm just so impressed by you. You're just so intelligent. And I'm just like, congratulations. And she said, so are you, in a different field and
Of
a
course.
different way.
Yeah.
And I think for everyone watching, so are you. Your voice. There was an interview with Kelly Clarkson years ago. She was getting all this grief for how heavy she was, and the weight went up and the weight went down, and everyone asked her about it in every interview. And again, we don't ask men, but we ask women about their weight. And she said, I will never be the thinnest person in the room, but I will have the best voice every time. Have that kind of confidence.
Yes.
Who are you in the room? What will you have that is the best in that room, because it needs you and it needs that specific thing to be brought to the table. No one has it like you. And when I feel less than or imposter syndrome, that's what I remember.
Yeah.
No one is uniquely Nicea DeGering, and what can I bring to the table today?
Pull up your chair.
Pull up the chair.
Sit down confidently, right?
And then move over for someone else.
Exactly, and make space
Let
for
'em in.
someone else, right? Well, and I've interviewed a lot of PhDs, and most of them aren't very well spoken, so I can just tell you that. No.
This is my
they,
specialty.
they may know a lot, but they're not necessarily well spoken.
You've caught me with my specialty. Yes.
Nicea, thank you so much for being here today and just sharing your experiences and your wisdom. It's just been delightful to talk to you, not only here, but before. It's been great.
I agree. Before and after. Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it.
And thanks everyone for listening today. Remember that change starts with you, and together we can increase our mental health momentum.